Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 263, and this show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to pick of the week, so let's get started. This week I had 18 comics, so back to kind of a normal haul until next week, which is the 5th Wednesday, so it's going to be a smaller haul. But let's get started. Like I said, number 18 for me this week. Might surprise you guys, but is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 32. Just haven't been able to get into this new creative team in general. I just feel like it's very cluttered from the artwork to the writing. I haven't really been able to get the chemistry of the team, and even when the Solar Ranger was revealed here, I'm just like, okay, cool. You know, it didn't really blow my mind. I do like the character design for her, but it's just, again, just so cluttered. I just can't get into this book. And the artwork is just not as strong. I do like the coloring a lot for this book, but I need more detail in the facial expressions. Feels a bit smudgy, the artwork. So, yeah, overall going to give this 2 stars. Wasn't a fan of this issue. But hopefully I grow a connection with it as the series goes on. But moving on to number 17 is Detective Comics, issue 991. This is very close to being, you know, least favorite as well. I don't really get what direction, or I would say road to issue 1000 they're trying to do, because so far it's been very fillerish, and I just don't care about this Two-Face story or their team up. And also the artwork is really weak here. Let me show you, the lines, especially on the faces, makes everyone's face look very chipped, I would say. That's the best way I could put it. So I didn't really like the line work here. I do feel like the artwork has been stronger in previous issues, but the coloring is still very strong, and I like the inking for the book, but just not into the pencils here. And again, we're getting to issue 1000, the second book to ever hit that number, and it doesn't feel like there's any anticipation or hype leading into it. We are 9 issues away, and we're still getting filler stories and not a true creative team here, because I don't think James Robinson's going to be staying until issue 1000, so it's weird. I think Tomasi's supposed to take it over. I think. I don't remember. But yeah, so I'm going to give this one 2 stars, and that is number 17. Moving on to number 16, which is Vampironica Halloween Special Issue 1. Just wanted to get in the Halloween spirit and get some specials, so I have 2, I believe, for this week, and Dynamite had a lot this week, so, and I haven't read Vampironica in, Vampirella, sorry. Vampironica is another book, but yeah, I haven't read Vampirella in a while. But this one I was a little lost in. There was this character that maybe was introduced in another series, and if she wasn't, I didn't really get her character here, where it's like, it's her birthday, and Vampirella's trying to find her own birthday, and they team up. I did not understand their connection, didn't really get to see the chemistry there. Like I said, she seemed like a character that maybe was established in another book that I just hadn't read. Just wasn't into this story at all, so I'm giving that 2 stars. So moving on to number 15, which is Return of Wolverine, issue 2. This is also a 2-star book, so there's a couple books that were, you know, down there for me. But with this one, I just don't care. You know, I just don't care about this journey at this point, and that's bad. You know, it's been such a long time since we've seen Wolverine, and I don't care about this relationship with this doctor, and then there's this random kiss in this issue. We got the heat claws, which I also don't really buy, and I just want to get to the Wolverine series at this point. It's just been too much of a journey and road to get to Wolverine coming back. It's just like, alright, if you want Wolverine back, just make it come back, because I do not need these filler issues to get there. They are so slow, and I just don't feel like there's a lot to say here yet. Also, the artwork changed. Steve McNiven was supposed to be doing this mini-series, and he only did the first issue so far, and then we got another artist, which was weaker, obviously, than Steve McNiven's artwork, which is more detailed. So, giving this one 2 stars, just don't get the point of this book so far. Hopefully I have something more to say and more substance as it goes on. Alright, moving on to number 14, which is X-Men Black Juggernaut issue 1. Another book that, you know, these one-shots so far have not had a lot of things to say. They just feel like, alright, if you've never heard of Juggernaut before, here's a story. The ones I read Juggernaut, and I read Magneto. Magneto was also kind of this generic origin story kind of thing, even though, you know, we know who Magneto is. It's just kind of explaining his character. And with this one, I like that it connected to the apocalypse stuff a little bit more, and I didn't even see like it was like this backstory the way they connected it, so that was really cool. But I am not invested in the apocalypse story by any means, so I didn't really quite care about the story, but I thought the transition was good. The artwork was very blocky and abstract, and that's just not my style, and I kind of like more of the more detail and muscles for Juggernaut and less of this abstract style. So yeah, overall giving this one 2.5 stars. It wasn't horrible, but it just, it wasn't worth the money for me. It wasn't worth the pickup. Alright, moving on to number 13, which is Infinity Warp's Arachknight issue 1. So far my favorite out of the Infinity Warp's titles. I didn't really like Infinity Hex, or whatever it was called. And this one, I at least saw the story. I still don't know, and again, I feel like this is a theme with a lot of these Marvel books this week, is like, I still don't get the point of it. Like, I don't know if I ever needed this story, and it didn't really hook me much, but I think there was more of a hook than the other titles, especially because they're 2 issues, which is crazy. Just give us 1 issue. Just give us one shot. Make it a $4.99 book instead of us paying, $8 for 2 issues. So I probably won't get the next issue of this, but with this issue we get to see kind of like this Bruce Wayne tale where Aunt May and Uncle Ben die in front of Peter when he's younger, and then he ends up like teaming up, and he gets bit by a spider out of coincidence during this moment. It's like, that is the biggest coincidence ever. He gets bitten by a spider so he doesn't get killed by this goblin monster, which we all know is Norman. And then we get to see Harry and Peter become friends throughout this thing, and they, Harry knows that he's this spider creature, or I don't think he's called Spider-Man here, he's called Arachknight. So Harry knows about this, they're teaming up with each other, but also Harry knows about his father, so he's kind of conflicted by the end and is trying to help his father. So I enjoyed that. I don't know if I got the emotional weight of that throughout the issue, but I like the concept for the most part, but not enough for me to get another issue. But I think this has been the strongest Warp series, but still don't really think we needed any of these series. So given that 3 stars, artwork is okay for the most part, pretty average artwork. I think it's strongest when doing the superhero stuff and the action stuff. Alright, moving on to number 12, which is Spider-Geddon, issue 2. I do feel like this issue is better than the first, but not by much. It is very much just an advertisement book. It's just like, alright, if you want to find out where Mayday Parker went, go read this book. If you want to find out this, go read Spider-Verse. If you want to find out this, go read... It's just a long list of go read another book, and that is like some of the worst cases of this I've seen in a Marvel event. It was like every page is like, go read another book, go spend money. But there were small character moments I enjoyed more here than that first issue. Like I like the Gwen, obviously it has the Venom symbiote, so... the Inheritor wasn't able to get her power, so that was cool, and I liked that everyone thought she was dead, so that was an interesting moment. So you get to see a little bit of their connection, but the Inheritors, I just don't care about them. It's just like, it feels like such a cash grab, the sequel, and it doesn't have much to say. Again, the theme of this video and this week for Marvel, it is sad. So I'm gonna give this 3 stars. Artwork was solid, and there's some good parts, and I think this was better than what we've been getting, but unless you're a hardcore Spider-Man fan, I don't think this is a very necessary series to get so far, and I would say the miniseries are more entertaining than the actual main events so far. So if you want to follow those, maybe you'll even get more story out of it, because they keep cluing you in to get them. So giving that 3 stars. Moving on to number... What are we up to? Number 11, which is The Flash, issue 57, which had a really good story. It's just this art. It's very inconsistent for the series. Very messy artwork for me. Just can't get into it. We've gotten this style before. Just so many lines. Not a lot of detail with people's facial expressions that I really need here. But the coloring's really good. As you can see, it really pops out. It's just the line work I don't really like for this book. And there's like a different artist like every couple of issues, so I wish it was more consistent. But the story is really good here, where we get to see Heatwave, well, just a new spin on the Rogues, where we're kind of seeing the nicer side of them, and Heatwave being the super Heatwave guy in the story, and it's Captain Cold, or Citizen Cold, whatever they're calling him here, saving the day. And we get to also see them learning more about the new Speed Force, and Iris and Barry teaming up with that. I love Iris here. I love how much she wants to be part of this, and her, you know, remembering her past. So there's some really good character moments here, and just cool Flash mythology being built in this story, which I've missed, and what I think that the Flash has really succeeded to do this year, and has gotten me into the Flash again, because I dropped this series, you know, a while back, and I'm glad I picked it up again with Flash Wars. But it's the art that's really bringing it down and not bringing it to the top 5 level that it can be. So the Flash issue 57 gets 3.5 stars, and I believe that was number 11. Alright, yeah, moving on to number 10, which is Long Lost Part 2, issue 3. I believe we're almost done with this series. I think there's like 2 more issues. I love the artwork. I love the grayscale. It really works for it. And finally, we're starting to get some answers of who these demon-type creatures are in the woods, what happened to their mother. So, I will say it took a really long time to get here, which is why it's not in my top. I feel like the pacing could have been a little better for this series and even this issue, but I'm glad we're starting to get answers and getting some of those emotional beats again. So overall, gonna give this one 3.5 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Regression, issue 12, which is doing the opposite of regressing, because it actually got a little higher this time. I really like the artwork for this series. That, you know, that's something that really drew me in. You know, love the coloring. It's, I don't know, the best way to say is shiny. It's weird to say that, but that's like the best description I could give it. So I like that, and I like that it's bright, even though it's a horror book. So I enjoy that aspect. And yeah, it was a good issue where we get to learn a little bit more about their regressive past. But what I like is that it stays more into the present. That's what I enjoyed about it. That's what I like. I like Molly's character. I like Adrian's character. I like the detective and their like psychic friend. Those are the characters I like. And the actual past stories where I'm like, I don't really care about that. Even though it's such a big part of the story, I'm not as invested in that. But overall, giving it 3.5. I thought they meshed the 2 stories better in this issue, and leading into hopefully an entertaining finale. Alright, moving on to number 8, a little lower than usual, but still a fun issue, and that is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 8. I will just say there's a lot going on in here. They're trying to fit a lot. We got Thor, we got Captain America, but the things that, of course, I enjoyed was MJ and Peter. I love their date, very New York date that they went to, and MJ just being really chill about Peter having to do stuff he needs to do, and MJ kind of figuring out her own life, and I like that. You know, one of my complaints for this series so far has been, like, MJ's been, you know, not her own person in this series yet, so I'm glad that we're kind of getting her own story now, you know, now that they're back together and kind of like became one person as a couple, where, you know, new relationships tend to do that. They're starting to find their individuality again, so I hope that continues as the series goes on, so I enjoyed that. I also like the villain. You know, I didn't really like this Thief Gang before, but I like the opener where she's like the richest woman in the world, and she's F's over this guy and says, well, you did all this wrong and now we're gonna ruin your life. So I enjoyed that, but again, there's just so much going on. It is a little bit too packed, this issue, and I do miss Otley on the book. I do like Ramos, but it's not as strong as Otley's artwork. But overall, I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. Still really entertaining, but probably my least favorite of the 8 issues so far. Alright, moving on to number 6, I believe. No, we're on number 7. Number 7 is Vampironica issue 4. Really entertaining story, but the artwork did change, which I'd rather have just waited. I'd rather have had Smallwood do the artwork, make it consistent, because this is a mini-series. We only have one more issue after this, so I kind of wish it was just consistent, because the pencils were not as strong as they usually are, not as detailed as Smallwood's, and I like his inking a little bit more with like the little black dots that he does, but still love this coloring. I'm glad it's the same color as it looks like, just the reds and the blues. It makes a very deep tone for the book. So I enjoy that. Some of the best coloring I've seen this year is from this book. But yeah, I still really like the story. It's Veronica and the gang trying to defeat all these other vampires, and her not being converted into this like other vampire hive, and figuring out who the big villain is. So it was fun and a good kind of point A to point B issue, and interested in the finale, of course. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Bettie Page, the Halloween special. I really just like this character that they've created for Bettie Page, and I really like the writer who's been writing her, and I'm excited to see him return for the next Bettie Page volume. But I just like her spunk, you know? She's ready to get into action, and she defeats this kind of magic guy who summons a demon, and the demon hates the guy and kills him. And Bettie Page even feels bad for him, even though he's a creep. She does feel bad that she's seeing someone die. So that was a really entertaining story. And then we even get a good secondary story where we get to see Bettie Page dressed as a call girl. Very on the nose. But her and her detective friend, they go to this Halloween party and see that this woman invited her just to kind of like hurt her because she kept stealing her jobs. And then we find out she was an alien all along, which fits with the previous story arc of Bettie Page. So if you've been enjoying Bettie Page, I think you'll enjoy this. It's not very Halloween-y, that first story, but it still has the magic and, you know, darkness, I guess, horror elements you might enjoy for Halloween. So overall, I gave it 4 stars. The artwork does change for the second story, but it is a secondary story with a different writer, so I didn't mind. But I do think the artwork was stronger for the first story. But yeah, if you're not reading Bettie Page, it's a really fun series, and definitely some of Dynamite's best work in a while. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Babyteeth, issue 13, which I believe has been delayed here and there. It feels like a while since I read this series, but every single time I read it, it's always really entertaining, and I don't forget what's happened because it's just been that strong of a series, and it is so much about the characters you don't forget. It doesn't dive too deeply into plot, you know, exposition, so that's nice, and the way they delve into plot is more about the characters, and I enjoyed this. It's our main character is going to hell, finding her sister. Sadie finds her sister and son, and they meet the devil, and we actually get to see the face of the devil, who didn't know that he had a kid. So I'm really excited to learn more about him and how Sadie actually knew him. So really solid issue with some good character beats, great dialogue as always, and I really like this darker artwork for the series, where it still doesn't feel muddy, which is a big challenge that I think they succeed here with. So I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Batgirl issue 28. I love this foil cover. It's just gorgeous. But I always feel like when I see it, I feel like it's going to be peeled off or something. It looks very fragile. But I really like this story. I just been really enjoying this new creative team overall. But the moments that really got me was Barbara and Commissioner Gordon. Let me show you some of those beautiful, expressive pages here where, you know, Batgirl, you know, Barbara sneaks out of the house, of course, and she's trying to defeat Grotesque and learn more about him. Cops are after Batgirl, and Jim gets upset. He's like, where have you been? Like, why are you sneaking around like a teenager? You know, you can't risk this. You don't want to be disabled again. And, you know, Barbara breaks down saying, like, the only reason I kept pushing myself was because of you. Like, I kind of wish you would once say, like, it's okay not to push yourself and to be okay that you're not okay, you know? So I really enjoyed that, and I thought there were some really strong beats between them. Still don't know how to feel about Grotesque, but at least we get to learn a little bit more about him and who he is, so I enjoyed that. And I love the classic trope of Commissioner Gordon's in trouble, Barbara has to sneak around and save her dad without her dad knowing, and that gets set up by the end of the issue as well. So really solid issue, and one of my favorite DC titles out right now, and then one of the most improved titles of the year in my opinion. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider issue 1. I did an in-depth review for this. I won't go too crazy with the analysis here, but I liked it. I thought it was a solid issue. I especially enjoyed the end where she goes into this different world and she meets this other Peter, and of course she reveals herself because she knows that Peter is going to know who Gwen Stacy is. So she uses her knowledge of her past, that Gwen Stacy's always doomed, and she reveals herself. And, you know, I didn't expect to like that part as much as I did, because I didn't like the middle where it's just like, whoa, where did that happen? You really need to read Spider-Geddon to understand the weird time jump between the first story where she's in her world and then going into this other world. And I don't love that it's forced to be tied in, but I think the creative team does as much as they can with it being forced to be tied in, better than what they did with Spider-Woman when they had Spider-Verse. But I do like also the artwork a lot here, especially when she's in her costume. I think the action flows really well. It's very kinetic. The only page I didn't really like was the Harry and Gwen page. I feel like the artwork could have been a little stronger there. But overall, I actually do like the way the artist writes Gwen. It just was those two pages, because I love Gwen's look over here, and even in the end with Peter, I thought was really good too. So overall, really solid artwork, and I feel like it brings a new flavor to the title without it feeling so drastically different from the original creative team. And love Ian Herring's art coloring for this book. It makes it feel very consistent, still has that very vibrant kind of strobe light feel to the book. So overall, I gave this 4 stars. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm glad that it kept in continuity with the past series and really feels like a new chapter. So giving this one 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, I think you guys will be shocked, but it is number 2. And that is Spider-Girls issue 1. And honestly, I just noticed that the cover really feels like the Spider-Girls Reader Digest. I noticed that with my thumbnail. I'm like, whoa, that looks like the Reader Digest. So it's cool having that homage. But yeah, with this book, it's definitely more in the vein of Renew Your Vows, which makes sense because the writer wrote part of Renew Your Vows before it ended, I guess. I don't know if it ended or not, but it seemed like it was ending. But yeah, with this issue, we get to see some, you know, some of them, you know, some of MJ and Peter and Annie kind of doing their thing. Annie also saying, hey, I don't want to be babied anymore. I kind of want to take the next step, kind of having this, like, child star moment where he's like, how do I grow up? After being this one person that everyone knows as a superhero. But then we also get to see Anya and May. They go into this world, and May realizes this is a world where MJ and Peter had another kid. So it's very similar to her situation, but she's still dealing with the trauma of losing her dad. So there's some really good emotional beats there that feel more in character with May compared to what we've been getting in Spider-Geddon, where she just kind of yells and just like, you know, I gotta see my brother. Oh my god, my dad's dead. And doesn't really have a mellow moment, where May is more about kind of keeping stuff inside until she does explode. And that's something I've always enjoyed about her character. And you really get to see that. You really get to see her process it through her head more. You know, she's just sad and kind of mellow about it. And then you know there's going to be the moment where she kind of explodes. But I'm glad they're kind of waiting for it. So I enjoyed that. Really like her hairstyle too. I know, why talk about that, but I think it is important. But I like that it's more modern, but still keeping with her short hair from the first half of Spider-Girl. So I enjoyed that, and I think the style looks a lot better than what she had in Spider-Verse, and I don't think we've seen her out of her mask in Spider-Geddon yet, so I can't say for that series, but I really like the style here. And overall, the artwork is solid. There are times where I think facial expressions could be a little stronger, like here with the scene with Peter and MJ and Annie. But yeah, overall, I do like the artwork, and I think it's gotten better from what Renew Your Vows artwork was towards the end of the series. And then the ending with MJ and Annie, I thought was really strong, where Annie realizes her mom is upset, and this was her, you know, this was going to be her kid. This was the kid that she miscarried. So we really get to see the emotional beats come through here, and that's definitely the strongest aspect of the story and what I've enjoyed the most. Small nitpicks of the issue though, there's moments where I feel like there's like missing panels, like where MJ gets hit by one of the vulture creatures, and we don't actually see anyone hit her, so that was weird. And also, when MJ leaves the room, Annie's like, oh, what's happening? And we don't actually see MJ leave the room. I think there should have been a transition panel there. So those are two little nitpicks. But overall, really enjoyed the issue, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And if you're a fan of all three of these characters, I think you get something special. Even with Anya, you get some stuff with the totems. You get to see, honestly, actually a big plot point with Annie. So I thought this was a really well done issue for me. So I'm going to give that 4.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, I think I'm going to surprise some of you guys. Because I also don't think everyone's going to agree with me, but my number 1 is Action Comics, issue 1004. Love this cover too. Glad I got the Francis Manapul one, even though the both covers look cool. But I really enjoyed this. This is where Bendis soars, no pun intended, but he really soars with this type of story, where he does decompress, but it doesn't feel like, alright, let's move on, we've dealt with this for 5 issues. Obviously, he's been building up to this conversation between Lois and Clark, and Lois feels very Lois here, where she's like, our lives aren't normal, and that's okay, and it's okay that we have 2 jobs that keep us separated, because we love each other enough that we don't always have to be in the same room to know that we love each other. And I kind of love that moment with the Lex Luthor and Lois scene too, where Clark breaks down. He's like, oh my god, what is our relationship? But Lois is so confident, you know, about their relationship. So, I just really liked how the conversation felt really real and raw. And again, that's where Bendis really succeeds. And this felt like old school Bendis to me, where I felt like this was a real conversation that would happen, and especially between these 2 characters. But I also like the classic callbacks of, like, Clark talking about the balconies. Like, well, does it have a balcony? And even some small art moments where we get to see Lois's bedroom. Oh, and also this kiss. I mean, there are just so many moments that I love from the artwork. But yeah, we get to see her bedroom, and we get to see an open suitcase, because that's how she's living right now. And even the sexual tension in this book is so well done. You know, not showing things, I think, was stronger than showing things. And you really get to see that point in this issue as well. But I enjoy the Daily Planet stuff. That felt really classic to me. It just was exactly what I wanted from a Superman book, and exactly what I would want from a Lois and Clark book that kept you on your toes. It wasn't generic and sappy, it was real, and it felt very much in tone for Lois especially, and gave us little hints about John as well, and him growing up, which is a part of life, you know? So I think people are going to be upset if they like the classic, not even the classic Superman, but what they've been enjoying in this small moment. They don't want it to be destroyed, and they're worried because of the New 52, and what comics have done with relationships. But I think over here it shows, hey, they still love each other, and they will always love each other, they're not breaking up, it's just them being able to be individuals at the same time and do what they have to do. Kind of feels like, you know, actors, where they could be married, but they have to go off for 3 months and do a film. Or people that go to war, you know, and they have to go off and not be with their loved ones because they have to do what they have to do. So I thought that was a really interesting way to tell the story. So overall, I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it and was pleasantly surprised by the issue. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the issue as well, and if you agree or disagree with that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.